Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Manon Colston. I'm the educational advisor for the Netherlands. I hope you're having a good fair so far and had the opportunity to connect to a lot of universities. But we're also very happy to announce our next session, which will be the last session of the fair, and we'll focus on scholarships and financial aid. And we're very happy to have a speaker with us today, Christy from Drexel University, to share her insights with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So once again, hi, my name is Christy. I'm an Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions here at Drexel University. I just want to reiterate and say I hope you're enjoying the fair. This is such a great opportunity to be able to connect with multiple institutions all at the same time. I just think is incredibly helpful. So please make sure you're taking advantage of it. I am here today to discuss scholarships and financial aid, specifically within U.S. universities. Similar to the application process to American universities, the scholarship offerings and the way to apply to scholarships can vary from institution to institution. So what I want to cover today is really just kind of talking about from the big picture, the different buckets of scholarships and financial aid that you could be eligible for and how you may be considered for those. And then it would be really then up to you to take that information and ask the appropriate questions to the universities that you are interested in applying in. We are a smaller group, and I do see that we have a Q&A box. So please don't hesitate to just, ask a question in there, ask for additional information, ask clarifying questions, because this is really for you. This is to make sure that you feel really confident and comfortable in making sure that you understand how financial aid works. So we really see in American universities financing to be a partnership between not only the university, but also students and families. So there are a few ways that you can be considered for financial aid and financial support from a university. There are scholarships, need-based grants, student employment opportunities, and loans. So just kind of walking through what each of those mean. Scholarships is an academic, well, not always an academic. It is a financial award that is given to a student for some sort of achievement. And then there are institutions that offer need-based grants, which means that depending on your family's income, you can be awarded aid to specifically make an institution more affordable for you. Schools vary. Some schools only offer scholarships. Other schools only offer need-based grants. So those are questions that you're really going to want to ask to see which type of financing they are awarding. And then there is student employment opportunities, which I will definitely go in and talk about quite a bit. And then there's loans. So I'm not going to talk too much about loans today, but I do just want to highlight that loans can be possible. So that would be something that would really be up to you to seek out. Most universities don't award loans directly. That would be a private search that you would have to do. So just know that sometimes students will use loans to cover any additional costs to a university. But for the sake of this conversation, I'm really going to be focusing on the scholarships, need-based grants, and student employment opportunities and what those exactly look like, okay? So the first one is scholarships. As I said, this is funding awarded to a student based on a certain achievement. So that can include academic, leadership, performing arts, athletics, and more. Okay, so you can receive a scholarship from one of two places. You can receive a scholarship from the institution that you are applying to. So for example, at Drexel, students are automatically considered for academic scholarships based off of the strength of their application. Students don't need to do anything additional for that. If they're a good fit, they will automatically be awarded that scholarship with their admissions letter. Then we also do offer leadership and performing arts, athletics ones, and more. So beyond, some universities do require a scholarship for academics, an application for academic scholarships. Some do not. So you're going to want to ask that question when you are learning more about a school. Beyond that, the leadership, the performing arts, the athletics, and more, you may need to do additional work to be considered for those. Okay, so for example, we have a Drexel Global Scholars Program. This is a leadership program for international students and we award full tuition for those scholarships. So also, that's a great thing to just note. Now, because that is an additional application, and there may be an interview to be considered for that. So you're always going to want to ask those questions. What types of scholarships do you award? Do you have any special or specific ones? Performing arts, you may need to submit a portfolio. So community service is another great example. So know that there's both those academic ones and potentially what we call special interest scholarships. I do want to highlight athletics here quite a bit because even in the fair today, I did receive multiple questions about how athletic scholarships work. Some schools do award scholarships for athletics. I want to highlight that this is certainly a one way to fund your university education, but it is not the only way. To be recruited for a Division I athletics team can be quite competitive. It is certainly possible, rest assured, but if it does not work out, I want to reassure you that there are many other scholarships available for you to be considered for. At Drexel, as I said, we are a Division I university, so we do offer some athletic scholarships. But in addition, 100% of our students last year received some sort of financial support to the university. So that means even our students that are not athletes or students that tried to be recruited for athletics and for XYZ reason was not considered a good fit for the team, they were still considered for additional financial support from the university. Okay, so I just want to highlight that. It is certainly a possibility. Athletic scholarships are managed directly through the coaches, so you would need to be talking to those coaches. But then similarly with performing arts, you would need to be submitting that audition to that department. Those leadership scholarships might be managed by certain offices. So just make sure that you are asking those questions when you are interested in a school. Institutional, actually, let me talk about the private piece first. Outside of what can be awarded from a university, there are also private scholarships. So certain nonprofit organizations offer scholarships. For example, when I went to university, I received a scholarship for being left-handed. So there are all kinds of unique and diverse people around the world that are looking to support students of really different backgrounds in funding their education. So maybe, for example, being women in STEM or a student of color. Once again, maybe you're a trombone player and there's an organization specifically trying to support trombone players. Seek out and see if there's organizations for specific scholarships that might be applicable to you. Scholly and fastweb.com are two fantastic opportunities and two fantastic ways to learn about those private scholarships. I believe last year there was over $1 million of scholarships that organizations wanted to give out last year that not enough people applied to or were not a good fit for. So that means there is literally money left on the table. What I would say is if you are currently a junior, you have not started your application process to universities, start looking at scholarships now. You can start applying to those outside private scholarships before you are even admitted to university. If you're a senior, I would recommend looking at these private scholarships in addition to, and see if there's any you should be applying to, in addition to your just general application to the university. Now, let's say you were awarded one of these scholarships, whether it's from a university or from a private organization. There are certain things that you're going to want to keep in mind. Some scholarships do have parameters or requirements. So for example, is this renewable? Is this scholarship that you've received going to be applicable to every year at the university? Or is this a one-time lump sum of money that will help one time? Will these scholarships increase or decrease over time? This is something that certainly is possible. Are there academic requirements? For example, some schools you need to maintain a 3.0 or a 3.5 GPA to keep that academic scholarship. And then finally, there may be limitations. So say you were awarded a scholarship to be an engineering student, and then you come to university and you realize, you know what, maybe I'd like to do something different. Maybe engineering isn't the right fit for me. There may be a limitation on that scholarship being awarded because you have to be an engineering student to maintain that scholarship. So these are questions that you don't need to ask right away, but once you receive a scholarship, these are the kinds of questions that you're going to want to pay special attention to make sure that you are really understanding all of these things, that you're truly understanding the parameters so that you can be financially prepared. You're not just planning to pay for university for the first year of college. You are planning your finances for your entire time at the university. So having this information about whether they increase, if there's any academic parameters or major limitations, those sorts of things are really important to know so that you can just make sure that you're on the right track. Just going to plug again that if there's any questions, I see we have a pretty good audience right now. If you have any questions about anything that I am asking, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat box. I am always more than happy to answer them. And you don't have to wait for the end for that. I'm happy to jump in at any time. In addition to these scholarships that are based off of some sort of achievement, there are need-based grants. Need-based grants are funding awarded to a student based on their income to make a school more affordable. So once again, as I said before, some schools only offer scholarships. Some schools only offer need-based aid. And then some schools do a combination of both. So you're going to want to ask about the university that you are interested in to see how they award their money. So in the United States, there are two types of financial aid applications that you need to submit. If you want to be considered for need-based grants, you do need to submit an additional application to be considered for them. This is because we need to know about your family's finances. To apply to university, we don't need that information if you just want to be considered for admission. But we do need that additional info, your parents' tax information, those sorts of things to help us develop these need-based grants. So to apply for those, there's the Css Profile and the Fafsa. So the Css Profile is a private financial aid application that is owned by the College Board. That is the same organization that runs the SAT, if you are familiar. Because this is a private application, private institutions can use this. So any private university can certainly any private university is certainly able to take this information into consideration. So all students are eligible to submit it. So for example, at Drexel, all students, regardless of their citizenship, are eligible to be considered for these need-based grants because we use this private application. There is also the Fafsa. This is owned by the government and is used by public institutions. And this can be used sometimes to be considered for university aid, but is also considered for federal aid. Because this is a government document, because the funding is coming from the federal government, only US citizens can submit. So I know we have a diverse background of students here. We may have some US citizens in the office. Please know that you may also be able to be considered for aid through the Fafsa. But if you are not a US citizen, then you are going to want to focus on submitting the Css Profile. Okay, so one other thing that I like to highlight about this is regardless of your family's income, I very much encourage you to submit this financial aid application if they are awarding this sort of aid. Not every university does, but for universities that do, this is definitely something to take advantage of. The reason why I highlight the value in submitting this application is because if there is, even if you think you can afford college in your first year, university is a couple years long, 4 to 5 years. A lot can happen during that time. God forbid there is a family emergency and your financial situation changes. We need that Css Profile on record to be able to consider you for a change in finances, to potentially be considered for more financial aid. If we don't have that profile on your record from when you applied to the university, we won't be able to consider you for additional support to help you through that emergency situation. In addition, you never know what kind of threshold is going to be a good fit for their university and for the grants that they're awarding. So it never hurts to try. If finances are even in the back of your brain as a consideration about when it comes to picking a university, then submit the CSS profile if they accept it. It doesn't hurt anything. I see a lot of questions coming into the chat box, which is awesome. I'm super happy to see that. I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at these really quick to see if I can answer some for you. Do you first need to be submitted by a university to apply for financial aid scholarships, or can you just apply, or can you first apply to that? So some scholarships you're going to be automatically considered for at the point of application. You can, for most universities, you need to apply to the university first. To be honest with you, universities only want to award scholarships or financial aid to students that they think are serious about coming. So the first step you're going to want to do is you're going to want to submit your general university application, and then you can submit these additional applications. So whether that's for a leadership scholarship or a performing arts scholarship or the CSS profile to be considered for need-based grants. So so that's kind of how it works right there. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to keep looking through. For creating an account in Scala, you're required to submit a GPA. However, I don't have this because you're a European school. There are calculators online that can convert your GPA. If you come to my booth, I'm also happy to talk with you about that to help you convert your GPA over. So rest assured that doesn't mean that the website is not eligible for you. So definitely Scala is still a great resource. So come to my booth and I'm happy to chat with you there about that. Let's see. Can you put a link in the chat for scholarship websites? I unfortunately don't have the chat feature in here, but once again, they were Scala and FastWeb. Where can you best raise detailed questions about parent financial statements for when you are not in a straightforward situation? So if you are in a unique financial situation, it is best to contact the admissions office of the school that you are interested in. I'm happy to have those one-on-one conversations about a student's financial situation, and all of my colleagues and peers at other universities are too. Honestly, the admissions office is happy to have those individualized conversations about anything, whether it's finances, your general application, or just learning about the university. So please, just as I said, once you narrow down the schools that you're interested in, you can reach out to them and let them know about what you're looking for. Okay. Is there a scholarship for athletic and high grades, or is a scholarship for one of them? So there are scholarships for both. They are in two different categories. So there is athletic scholarships where you speak with the coaches, and then there are academic scholarships that specifically are based off of your strength of your application. Varies from school to school. Some are going to automatically award those. And then in addition, and then other schools you might need to submit an application. So once again, you're going to want to ask those questions about each place that you are looking for. Okay, student employment. Student employment is an opportunity for you to work on campus to assist with your cost of living. This is typically up to 20 hours a week. Now, even though when you are on a student visa to the United States, your priority is to be a student. That being said, legally, you can work up to 20 hours a week on campus at a job that is secondary to your studies. There are two types of opportunities that are available, and once again, this depends on your citizenship. Student employment is a job on campus that is paid for by the university or a specific department. For example, in admissions, we hire students to be tour guides. That money comes directly from our budget. So we can hire any student that we want, regardless of their citizenship. These can be competitive because these are the only positions on a campus that an international student is eligible for. So some universities have job boards that you can apply to. So that you can see all those listings available. Other schools do it through word of mouth. So if you are interested in a student employment opportunity, this is something that you should just be actively speaking to your professors about and your academic advisor to see if you can find a position on campus. I do want to highlight that if you are on a student visa, you can only work on campus. You are legally not allowed to work off campus. So you're going to want to specifically focus your search on jobs that are available through the university. Sometimes I have students reaching out before the term starts, before they've even come to the United States, about how to find these jobs. Sometimes you can land one before you actually come to campus, but honestly, it's much easier to find them once you are already a student. So it's something that you're just going to want to seek out once you are here. If you are a U.S. citizen, there are also work-study opportunities. This means instead of a specific department paying for it, the money comes from the federal government. And so that is why only U.S. citizens can participate through that, and that is once again awarded by if you submit the Fafsa. Now, student employment is a great opportunity to help with your cost of living. On average, these are between 10 and 15 US dollars an hour. So doing that for up to 20 hours a week is certainly a good amount of money. But depending on your cost of tuition, this money may not be enough to cover your tuition costs, but it might be enough to cover your groceries or your local transportation or to buy a winter jacket if it gets cold. So this is certainly still a great supplemental income to just help with those outside of pocket costs, outside of the literal cost of education. I'm just going to pause for a second and look at other questions. Let's see, I've talked about some of these already. If you are submitted to a college, then apply for financial aid, but don't get the aid, what are the financial consequences? Can you unenroll without costs? Good question. So if you are admitted to a university, you are not required to commit and say, yes, I'm going to come here until after you have your financial aid package. So hopefully the goal is for you to make an educated decision on where to attend university that is going to be a good financial fit for you. So that's kind of how that process works. Let's say that if you never attend classes, there are no costs. So I hope that helps. Is there also a visa where you can work anywhere while studying? The answer is no. Technically you are, once again, it is a student visa. So the goal and the priority is for you to focus on your academics. So these on-campus employment opportunities are the best way to do that. There is also something known as CPT and OPT, which is curricular practicum time and optimal practical time. These are opportunities for you to work off-campus positions, either during your time of study or after your time of study, related to your major. So this could be an internship, this could be a full-time cooperative education experience, and there is opportunities for you to earn money that way. So that is another opportunity, but once again, these are not typically going to be able to cover all of those tuition costs. This is once again an opportunity for you to just cover some living expenses. Let's see. Lisa has a question. Can you unenroll from a college without cost when you've applied early decision and didn't receive a scholarship yet? So early decision, if you are unaware, is an opportunity for you to be to apply to a university and say, no matter what, I want to attend here. And honestly, that means that you're saying that no matter what, I'm going to come. If finances are even a thought in your conversation, if the cost of a university is even a consideration that your family is considering, I do not recommend applying early decision. It is not best practice because these are binding expectations. So it would be much better for you to apply early action, because then that way you are able to hear back hear about that financial aid package before deciding if your family can afford that decision. It is only October, so if you've already applied early decision, but finances are a part of the equation, you should contact that school and consider changing it to early action so you have that flexibility and that breathing room to figure out which school is going to be the most cost effective. Leanne has a question. Can you do work study if you're not an American citizen? No, you cannot. So that's why student employment is going to be the best opportunity. Work study is paid for by the government and is set aside for specifically U.S. citizens. Student employment means that everybody is eligible. So once again, this is something that is certainly available. It can be a bit competitive, but if you are eager, if you are putting yourself out there, you are making it known to leaders and mentors and faculty across the university that you are looking for student employment, typically there are ways to find that opportunity. These are great questions. Thank you, friends. All right, so let's talk about costs. How much will it cost? There are really two ways. There are two types of costs available. There are going to be direct costs, right? So tuition and fees, if you're living in a residence hall, a meal plan, health insurance. Universities require students to have American health insurance. So these are all costs that are going to be directly on your bill. And if you have any financial aid or grants or scholarships awarded, these are going to apply directly to those direct costs. Indirect costs are basically everything else that it costs to live somewhere. So buying textbooks, transportation back and forth from home to campus. Like I said, personal expenses such as buying, snowshoes or, the snowshoes or occasionally going out to eat to celebrate. Those are indirect costs. If you live off campus, you wouldn't be paying the university for that either. You would be paying a third-party landlord. So it's really important for you to think about that there's going to be more in the cost of attending university than just the tuition. It's going to be these additional areas. Now, all universities can tell you both of these numbers. So when you are financially planning for a school, you want to think about not only those direct costs, but those indirect costs. And going back to that student employment slide that I was just discussing, though any money earned from something such as student employment is going to be super helpful for covering those textbooks. Or once again, if you're living in a city and you want to get around the city, those sorts of things. Because the amount of pay that you would receive is going to be a little bit more helpful with those indirect costs. Now, if a school is offering financial aid based off of your family's income, they are going to use something known as the EFC, your expected financial contribution. So if you fill out that Css profile, you tell us about your income and assets, your family size, how many students are in college, special circumstances such as health-related expenses. They are going to take that number and say, okay, based off of their personal situation, we expect that this family can contribute X amount of money to their education. Then, to determine the types of support that they will offer, they will take that total cost of attendance and they will subtract that EFC to determine your need. And that need is the number that they will then use to offer those need-based grants, okay? So just know that this is kind of how it works. If a school is offering need-based aid, I'd just like to also highlight that they are required to have a university net price calculator. This is something in which you can actually go in, you can plug in your academics, your personal financial situation, and they'll generate a number of what they expect the cost of a university would be for you. Because schools are so different in how they award financial aid, chances are the number that you are seeing as a sticker price may not be the number that you have to pay. So submitting this university net price calculator can help you determine ahead of time before you even apply what that price might look like for you. So finally, these are just a few things that I like to highlight. Once again, these are some great questions for you to ask. Does tuition increase every year? Does aid increase if tuition increases? All these sorts of things. Can I negotiate for more aid? What are the deadlines? Because as I said, just like the entire application process to American universities, this can really this can really vary from institution to institution. So it's really important for you to just ask and make sure you are getting the right information to make sure that you are identifying schools that you believe may be able to financially support you and make your education most affordable. And with that is the end of my formal presentation. I wish there was a chat box in this room, unfortunate for me to send some links. Unfortunately, there is not, but that's completely okay. I will be back in the Drexel University booth after this, so we can also have some more individualized conversations, or I can send you some of those links there. Is there anything else that I can answer for you today? I know we saw a bunch of questions in the chat box before, so hopefully that means at this point, there isn't anything else. Hopefully I've covered everything, but let me know.